Lastly, we'll talk a little bit about psychoanalytic methods. Psychoanalysis is Freud's dominant way of uncovering what's in the unconscious to expose it to light and through which it vanishes. So what is psychoanalysis? Psychoanalysis is a form of therapy that, back in the 1970s in this country was very common and popular, and it still is used quite a lot in Europe, in our country, because our medical models are dominated by insurance company decisions. Psychoanalysis is a long, time-consuming process that insurance companies don't generally support anymore. So it involves, you can see in the picture, this thing where this person is laying on the couch, and the therapist, you can see, has his back turned. And the idea that's being considered here is that this woman is just going through psychoanalysis. She's going through a process called free association, meaning that she's just going to lay there and talk about whatever comes into her mind. And the job of the therapist is really to, first off, allow her to transfer some of what she's going on onto him. So to just, whatever emotion is arising in her, she can instead of acting on impulses, she can release them, transfer them to the therapist. And so the idea, if she just starts talking without interruption and says whatever comes to mind without monitoring her speech, monitoring her words, then eventually things that are in her unconscious are going to come out into the open. And the therapist's job is to just notice patterns and things like that. You mentioned your mother 3 times here, and then just let her continue on talking. And it's her own process of talking that allows these unconscious factors to come out into the open. And the idea of psychoanalysis is that once these unconscious motivations are sort of exposed to light, metaphorically speaking, they dissolve. Once they're out in the open, then they become less powerful and less triggering, and they can help to cure hysteria and things like that. And that's how we would deal with unconscious drives that we don't want to have. And so how do we know what's in the unconscious then? Well, of course, psychoanalysis, but also through our dreams. Freud thought that our dreams were great windows into what was happening in our unconscious, and that our dreams had both a manifest content, and that is what you actually remember. For example, if someone was to ask you what you dreamed about, you would probably say, "Oh, I dreamed I was, had just walked into the ocean and a ship was about to run over me," or something like that. That's the manifest content, the actual scenario that you recall. And the latent content are the dormant wishes and desires that are represented by the actual content. So he might say then, well, walking into the ocean maybe represents that you're feeling overwhelmed right now, and the ship maybe represents your boss and you're feeling bulldozed. And so that's like what's underneath, or what's represented by the manifest content. So he would consider dreams to be important. That should be written down and considered. And then another way we can discover the unconscious is through, they're called parapraxies, but also more commonly called Freudian slips. And it's when we say the wrong word. Very often they're embarrassing, but this simple example is I have a snore neck, and this person is probably very tired. And this word snore was revealing what's in their unconscious that they themselves weren't acknowledging. Psychoanalysis or insight therapy, that's free association once again. Detailed stories can emerge. The more we talk about, say, a memory, the more details emerge. That's hypermnesia. Like instead of amnesia, not being able to remember, we remember more and more details as we talk. And this is true in memory theory. But this free association process is what allows that to happen. The more we talk about it, the more we remember. The more we remember, the more we help to tease out what's in the unconscious. And so projected emotions, like reading your body instead of what you say. Like if you say, I'm not angry, when your face is, when you're all tight, we can also find out what's inside your unconscious that way. And then projective personality measures, we're going to work with like the Rorschach ink blot test. And so these, even though we have an example on the next slide, we'll not talk about them in this series of lectures.